up another thing, because I was also on the planning board for several years under George Lucier's guidance, and George unfortunately passed away. And
he taught me a lot. He was when I first got on, he was still there, and I definitely his depth of knowledge was amazing. He was really a mentor to me. I'm not saying that we agreed on everything, but I
was smart too.
Very smart, and he knew it frontwards and backwards. And one of the biggest things that I learned from George is the importance of the preparation. You're not going to be on that board making votes and decisions without studying the material and knowing the material, and nobody did it as good as he did. Jonathan Spoon does a great job of it. We have other planning board members that do a great job of it, but I learned from George how important that was.
I think George just about went out on every site survey as well, because that was an important part. I had an opportunity to go on some of them. And there's a lot when you actually see it versus just reading about it on paper.
Absolutely.
Let me bring up another thing. This, I think someone raised a concern, and I think we should address it, because having been on the planning board, people on the planning board take the responsibility seriously. And I think someone said, well, should we have a developer on the planning board? And I would argue that you probably do need a developer on the planning board. And what would be your argument for being on the planning board?
Well, I mean, I think just this week I got a little bit of heat from, what is it, our neighborhood or the neighborhood thing, whatever it was. And so I said, somebody said, should a real estate agent be on there? And interestingly enough, one of the comments was, if you had a health advisory board, who would you want on there? You'd want a doctor on there. Well, I'm no doctor, but like this is what I do. I do think that even when I don't agree with the other board members, I think that my perspective is appreciated, and I give them another perspective for them to think about, just a different way of looking at things. And I'm not a rubber stamp. I don't approve everything, and our planning board hasn't approved everything, and we really do, want to do what's best for the county or whatever. But I think people, hopefully I bring in some perspective. Like one of the things that came up was boat storage, and the amount of visitors that our lake gets. It is the most visited public park in the state.
Actually, yes.
It's number one, and it's not by a little.
And that's year after year after year. It's not just occasionally.
Right. And so it's really important to our economy. I mean, we get dollars from those people that visit the lake or whatever. And so, some people said that they wanted the boat storage had to be on 64, had to be on 64. Well, guess what? The price, acreage on 64 right now is 150 to 400,000 per acre on 64, and you can't do boat storage when the prices of the raw acreage is that high. So it had to be off. We had one that was off of 64.
Wasn't there also an issue? I think we had one come up when I was there on getting on and off 64 if you've got a boat.
Yeah, right. And people are concerned about traffic, and I get it and everything, but is it like if you have a boat storage that's like a mile or two away from a boat ramp, isn't that less traffic than if you had to drive 8 miles from 64 to get to that same boat ramp? So
yeah, not everyone's pulling out their boat every day.
Exactly. But my point is that I don't think it may or may not have changed anybody's decision on that vote or whatever, but at least they knew why they all can't be on 64. Like that's a great thought. Yeah, of course, let's keep all the boat storage on 64 or whatever, but it's not always practical, and sometimes they get priced out.
I think the other thing people fail to realize is that if you're on the planning board, you've got certain parameters and guidelines to stay within from both the county and the state. So you're right. You've got to, you mentioned the board, not the board, the department. They do a great job being aware of what those responsibilities are.
Yeah. Not only did I learn how much that I have to be prepared by George Lucier teaching me that, but our planning department does a great job of preparation. We get a lot of material, but it's because they're looking out for us and they're supplying us with a lot of material.
have you ever found it funny? You don't have to name specifics. I occasionally find it funny when some developers, especially the ones from out of the county, would show up and kind of not even pay attention to what the department had to say. And I'm like, guys, they laid it out for you.
Yeah.
This is what you need to do. You're not going to get a yes vote for on it.
Oh yeah, I mean that was one of my first meetings, and George let him have it. I mean, he's like he said, "You are woefully unprepared. I cannot believe you came in here with this level of lack of preparation." I mean, it was horrible, and I think they learned their lesson, came back a few years later or whatever, and it all worked out. But yeah, there's a certain way things are done here, and they should really listen to the planning department and get all their stuff in a row.
All right, so we did discuss the planning board situation. Again, there are parameters you have to work within. Mm-hmm. Anything else we need to say before we wrap it up here?
Since our main focus was on real estate, I just wanted to touch upon how important, and I think this speaks to you, and we remember when we had a printed paper, right? And now
Yes.
it's all digital.
Pretty much.
Well, real estate, the MLS isn't so important. The a sign in the front yard isn't so important. I mean, it's all about digital right now. And one of the stats that I looked up before we met this morning was people searching for a property is up 2,000% in the last 10 years online. So that is real estate agents now seem to be second. First is online. Doesn't diminish the importance of real estate agents. I think we're really good as far as supplying comparative market analysis, knowing the process, getting them through the process. But we're not the keep holders of the information anymore. The information is out there.
Right, but from a digital perspective, I mean, you're assertive about. I mean, you've got your YouTube channel and you're putting out content as to what's going on here.
I'm doing this.
Right, you're doing this, and what I have found is people will find these kind of conversations more useful than.
Yeah.
And I mean, I have some individuals reach out. How come you don't repost this? Because all you're doing is talking about a specific house. We're not talking about the situation here in Chatham County and giving folks. Providing with some information.
Yeah, if you go to my YouTube channel, I don't talk about individual properties. I don't do that. And then some agents do that, and I'm not saying that that's bad and everything, but I give out content about the land process and the real estate process and everything. I want, and some people say, why do you do that? You're giving all your information away. First of all, I'm not giving all the information away, and 30% of my business right now is probably from YouTube. So it's huge.
Yeah, one of his favorite YouTube one was, what is it, on was it Bigfoot or something?
No. I do get calls. Bigfoot and UFOs I've gotten calls on. And those aren't the best calls.
Hey, where can I find a landing for my UFO?
Landlocked land is by far the number one. I get calls from California,
All right.
Florida, Texas.
What is a definition of landlocked land?
It's a parcel of land that doesn't have public road frontage, and it doesn't have deeded access.
Okay, so what do you do? Helipad?
Well, there are situations where you've had a roadway that you've used. We call this a handshake easement. So your grandfather and your grandfather's brother shook hands and said, of course, Joe, you can always drive on this road, But what happens is people pass away, the properties transfer and everything. And so the land goes without an actual deeded easement. And so that's difficult to cure, because now the person that, the road is over might get belligerent and not allow you to do it. Now, if you've been doing it for X amount of years, you can't be stopped from doing it, but doesn't stop them from putting up a gate, and it gets messy legally and So, and then, there's, I don't know if it's still the case, but I remember about 10 years ago, the amount of acreage that didn't have public road frontage was more than acreage that did have public road frontage in Chatham County. So we have a lot of private roads. We have a lot of handshake easements. We have what's called a cart path easement. It's just, people have been using the road forever and ever, but it's just not, it's not recorded at that register of deeds, and that's the be all end all. And so there are people that get very, very upset. There are people that get a loan or refinance, and the lender's like, hey, you don't have access. I mean, we have deals that fall apart because we don't have a road maintenance agreement. That's another thing. It's like, Joe and Steve and Tom and Debbie and Cindy, they all are using that road, And they just said, well, we'll just put the gravel in when it needs it. And everybody's fine with that. But if you don't have that recorded, some banks aren't going to give you a loan. So curing these situations is very, very difficult. And the more people you have, you just need one to not agree to it, and it gets real messy.
Yeah. If you have a grudge, that can hurt you.
Yeah.
I want to finish up on this. We're into May now. Favorite experience that you've had in this job this year, 2024?
That's good. What is it? What I've really developed into is what is known as an entitlement contract real estate agent. So I do seller representation for large landholders, and the developers come to us, and it's a real battle in the kind of contract that we get. So the only way they're going to buy this is if it gets approved for the density of lots that they want. Okay, so the developer, they can't buy it unless they get all the lots that they want, and the seller wants a higher price, and so they're able to get a higher price if it gets approved for the subdivision. So to have that area of specialization has been very, very rewarding. And one of the things I realized is there's like 12 land acquisition people, and once you're in that club, it's a really nice club to be in, and to be able to work with these people. And I think they know that I'm going to treat them fairly, but I'm looking out tough for my sellers, and my sellers know that I know how these guys operate and everything, so they know that they're getting good representation. And so that's been fun. So I've had because of these entitlement contracts this year, I've already had a better year this year than I had last year.
We're not even halfway through.
I know. And last year was not a bad year and everything. And we still have plenty more under contract. And another good thing is I'm not just doing that in Chatham County anymore. I'm doing that in Guilford County, Randolph County, Orange County, Harnett County. So I'm doing it in Durham County. Just had a huge offer in Durham County this week, and so that's been real fun to spread out and not just be a Chatham County guy, to go further out and have these are really fun deals. Now they take a long time to close. They take like 15 to 24 months to close, but luckily I've been doing it long enough that I'm having some of those close throughout the year. So.
Actually, I do have. I said that was the last question, but I have one last question. That former student who's now 46 years old and come to you, how do you help him out, or what do you tell him?
Well, he's lucky. I mean, he actually has some family land, and he's a big deer hunter and a great guy. He played free safety and quarterback for us, and was also a basketball player. But he actually owns some acreage next door to some acreage that I owned, and so he's one of the lucky ones because he has family that had some property, so he's okay. He's okay. You know, he was just stopping by to say hello or whatever. But yeah, what do I tell those guys is, gosh, it's just tough. It's just tough. They gotta make more. They have to go. You still can be in the southwest part of the county, like where I'm in Goldston, and I'm lucky I have some acreage myself, but you know. It's still cheaper in the southwest, but that's not going to last much longer.
Right. Yeah, that's going to disappear in a few years.
Yeah.
All right, folks, we're going to wrap it up here. Thanks for listening. Eric Andrews' website is what?
EricAndrewsRealtor.com.
Eric Andrews.
Well, please check out my YouTube.
Yeah, see that thing about Sasquatch or the UFOs. All right, folks, thanks for watching. Gene Galin with the Chatham Journal. Appreciate it.
Thank you.